Yeah, yeah.
Peter, how are you?
Yeah, yeah. It's all good. Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, let's make a start. I don't know if anyone else is coming, but we might as well kick on with stuff. I've actually got
I
to
have
hang
a
out later with someone in Jacksonville, down in Florida, who contacted me, and with a group down there, we're looking to connect up. So last week I had a
awesome.
connection with someone in Australia, and they were looking to connect and see we can support and do things there. So God's doing a lot of stuff, so it's good. Mm.
Excellent.
Awesome. That's cool. Yeah. Well, one question I had, Mike, with the beta groups, are you going to be actually setting up groups within beta and then assigning them like leaders out of the alpha, or is that something you'd like us to do, or how are you thinking? 'Cause several people have asked me about that. Is Mike gonna set us up in a group? And I said, well, I don't think so, but
Yeah. Well, what I'm going to do is those people who are recruiting people themselves, and there are a number of people who have encouraged people to join, and they've used their name as sponsor. Um, they can just mentor those groups whoever they like. I mean, there's no, we're not setting up some sort of structure here that's to tell people what to do. For those people who have said that they would like to mentor people, or they're in a position where they would like to do that, but have not yet found anybody, or would like to, then I can look at, once we've got a little bit of a more clear idea of how many people in the beta that there are, look to see who's in what sort of time zones or areas and connect them. And that's as much as we'll do. We'll probably just make the connections of, like, here's some people in your time zone or your area. If you would like to support them in any way, then we can make the connection. And I think that's what we'll look into do. And I think we'll probably give it a month just to see then, how many people we've got in the beta group. I've already pulled together those that said that they were in a position that they might be happy to mentor. So I know how many people there are, and then we can see, how that would work or how that would fit. I mean, at the moment, I think there are probably about 190 people in the beta group, so that's sort of increasing. So hopefully, if it ends up at sort of, say, 200, 250 or something, then we only need sort of 30 people to mentor, 7 people each, and then everyone will be covered. So, and that would be at whatever way they wanted to do that. That could be once a month, it could be once every few weeks. It's really then up to the individual to say, and it could be very much just, I just want to hold your hand through this process. If there's anything you want to ask, you don't have to be, the fount of all wisdom and try and come up with answers, because you can point them back to, the material if they're going to ask questions about certain things, but just to encourage people to begin to give away and support others. But we'll probably give it a month just to actually settle down and see how many there are, and then see what we can do in terms of sorting out time zones. The vast majority of them are still in the US, and Canada. There are people from different parts of the world, but most of them from there. So, but then that's where most of the mentoring people are as well. So we'll see, and hopefully, some people are already doing it as small groups. And what there is as a thing that we will be offering is a group engagement for those who actually are in a physical location and want to do it together as a group. We will have a group rate which will be like a 50% discount. So a group of 12 people with a leader in that group, say a leader plus 12, it would be £30 a month, which is like half the price of every individual. And then that could then be for people who haven't got access to computers. The person could put the media onto memory sticks or CDs, or print out the PDFs and hand them out to the group. They would then manage that group, having access to the material to do what they want. And you can then, they might want to meet each week and practice and have exercises, but it's very flexible. But we do. Several people have asked, and several people have are already saying, well, I've got a group of 5 and I've paid for them all, which doesn't actually help us too much, because that means all our registrations are in the same name. We don't actually tie them up with the people who are in the group. So, but a group way, because there may be churches down the line who want to use this as their ministry tools, and we can facilitate that, so they don't have to sign up 50 people or 100 people. They can just actually do one flat rate, and then whether that be monthly or yearly, and then that gives them the facility to adapt the material for how they want to use it. Because it's like, so long as people don't change the material, people can run it as a weekly group, and then with encouraging people to do things on their own. There's so many ways to do things, and we want to be flexible to allow ministries or churches to do that with how it fits in with their way of doing things. So that's a sort of an answer to that. So probably in about a month we will see what we can do in tying people up if they would like to get in touch. But that's no guarantee that everyone in the beta groups wants to, and maybe just happy working through it themselves. So we will contact everybody and say, if you'd like to be mentored, you can get in touch with this person, and they will connect and see how it goes. That's probably how we'll do it. So.
Okay.
All
right. Well, yeah, we talked about it this week. We're going to probably start a little beta group here that I would facilitate, and we will meet probably like doing a Google Hangout because of logistics getting together. So
yeah.
We're going to get that up and running. We've got like 4 or 5 in our group that are doing it. So.
Yeah, well, that sounds great. And that's really, I think, the precursors then to seeing this spread and then helping other people to do the same. And that's really the way in which I want to see this grow, is releasing the material and helping people to facilitate being able to be equipped to help the next generation that come through. I mean, that's the key. This isn't just about personal growth and development. It is about, am I willing then to freely give away what I've given up to others, or to help support others grow? And certainly when it comes to, a Joshua generation, we're going to need a lot of people, because we're believing there's going to be a big harvest, so there's going to need to be a lot of people who can help support that. So, yeah.
I have some questions.
Yeah.
You ready? You ready to shift, Peter?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go on, go ahead.
Joshua generation. Speaking of Joshua generation, demonstration of power has been on my mind, and things are starting, I believe, starting to come together for me. Vibration and quantum, and I'm beginning to get some of that stuff, I think.
Yeah.
At some point, sounds like in what Jesus returned to us, the keys of the kingdom, we're the mandate that Adam and Eve had to take dominion and release the kingdom on the earth. Demonstration of power. Talk a little bit about what I envision is speaking, things happen. At some point it seemed to me like that would be a manifestation, if not the manifestation, where physical labor after the fall, physical labor with toil. It seems to me like Adam was speaking a lot of it be done. What's your thought? What's your experience along those lines, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely hold to the thing of out of relationship, particularly the sort of John 14 understanding of being in I am and being in the Father and the Father being in me, that type of connection, it leads on to the Father in me doing his work through me, and actually me doing greater works and the works of Jesus and greater things. And I think some of the works of Jesus are definitely things that we have to be doing here, you know, demonstrating the kingdom, subduing, having dominion, changing things from that perspective, destroying the works of the evil one, so bringing health and wholeness, you know, having the ability to operate, you know, in terms of miracles and signs and wonders in that sense. I am totally up for that. I know personally myself that God has had me sort of lay a lot of that down to focus on understanding the greater works and what we do in the realms of heaven and how we operate heavenly government, which will help facilitate some of those things in a better way, how we flow from the inside out, and how actually, you know, power does get manifested, and that's the key. I think when you're operating in infancy, it's almost like it just happens and wonderful, we did something and something happened and amazing, wow, someone got healed. But it was almost like a little bit like we didn't really know what we did, but thankfully God did something, and so we're all happy. But as you mature, God wants to reveal how. He wants us to know how to release frequency and light and sound, and how we can, our words and our thoughts are creative in their power, and how to, you know, mix grace and faith to produce power and anointing to change and transform, how to do the things like disappearing and going into that realm and coming out of that realm bodily as well as spiritually. You know, all the things that Jesus did, we have the capacity to do. And we should, according to Matthew 5, you know, demonstrate our good works before people so that they will, you know, and it says, let your light shine. Now, I think we can take a spiritual application of that and say, yes, we do our good works and people see the good things and that's our light. And, you know, we used to sing that song, you know, this little light, let it shine, and that sort of stuff. You know, but actually I think it's more than that. It goes beyond that into we will radiate light, and that light will carry with it the power to heal and to transform and to have energy that in a sense produces matter, because we will have the ability to operate E equals MC squared, because that's what happens when matter, I think, is M equals E over E squared or C squared or whatever it is. I can't remember exactly, but in reality there's a scientific formula that talks about how matter and energy gets transformed using the speed of light as a medium. So I think we will understand how to do all those things. When Jesus was filled with the power of the Spirit, in other words, the anointing of the Spirit was in the inside of him, it said that they felt that the power was there to heal, and they touched him and drew from him the power to heal, like touching the hem of his garment or touching him, and he knew power had drawn from him to heal. So there was this understanding that things were coming from the inside, and therefore we could use our words coming from the inside, we could use our hands that draws from the inside, that carries with it vibrational frequency, heat, to effectively speak into situations and change them. So I think we're going to see that. I think when we're operating in cities of refuge, we will be operating under another system of government, a heavenly one, which will be health, wholeness, peace, justice, righteousness, you know, the lot. But we will have to take that from those cities of refuge as the embassies of heaven, or, you know, whichever one you call it, a garden that operates in that, and we will have to take that out of the garden to go and engage and increase the government and increase the area of government and bring more light and then bring more areas under that government as we see the kingdom expanding, because we will see the kingdom fill the earth. as it says, the mountain that's cut out without hands, the stone becomes a mountain which will fill the earth. So I'm fully expecting the mountain of the house of the Lord to be the position of government that will be operating on the earth. Not saying that won't be opposition or we won't still have to subdue and operate in dominion, but I believe that that will take place, and we will operate in a different system of authority and power to do that. And so I do believe in that we will manifest things out of that spiritual realm in the physical realm. Just like Jesus transformed water into wine, we will be able to transform stone into gold or diamonds or whatever else we need to do to enable us to do whatever we're called to do. Because there's, 2 Corinthians 9:8 says that there's enough grace for every situation that we face, that we will have more than enough to meet all our needs and enough for every good deed. And I don't believe grace is just talking about money. It's actually talking about the supernatural divine ability of God to get the job done according to his will and purpose. So I believe that we will see a manifestation of that without a doubt, increasing. But I'm personally not focusing on it right now. I know that it's part of my destiny to do those things in the future, but I want to know how to establish the heavenly government which will facilitate those things as a gateway of heaven, because there are also greater works which are not just to do with what we do here, but operate in the dimensions of heaven and aligning the circle of the deep in heaven, which releases dimensional things and other things that we're also responsible for as sons. But I do want to focus on getting this planet back into its right frequency and position in government. So yeah, definitely we're going to understand much more of how to release the power of God to bring transformation and change. And not just, it's not just that we will know how to do it, we will need to do it. Because if all the mountains that are currently operating in any sort of cultural or governmental sphere, whether it be health or government or finance or any of those mountains, if they are going to come to us as the mountain, then those mountains are going to do that because their things are no longer working. Their systems of earthly authority will no longer carry that authority or the effect, and it won't work. So when the financial system collapses and there is no international transfer of money via the internet, and there is none of that system working, we're going to have another system. And I believe that God is indicating some of what those systems are, but some of them will be absolutely supernatural. And because I think if you look in the early church and the way they operated in relationship was no one had a need, I believe that will become what happens in a city of refuge. No one has need of money because no one has an understanding that I need personal possessions. We all are one in this. We live together. We work together. We're all one heart, one mind, one purpose. And actually, I don't need materialism any longer. Because when I seek first the kingdom, he guarantees that he's going to provide something to live, something to eat, something to clothe me. And I'm not going to use that as a status for making myself feel better or do any of those things, because I will be operating under a different system. And my heart and everyone else's heart will be, hey, who's got a need? How do we make sure no one's got a need? Because we have all the resources of heaven available for us to be able to meet all those needs and to provide, because we operate under a different system. Right. And so, I think that's coming. The same will happen with health. The same will happen with government. It will happen to all the mountains. They're coming to us. So we better learn how to do it.
Okay, and that's really kind of where my line of questioning is. So a few things here. One is for me personally, when I started down this trail, this journey, I started hearing and rehearsing and at some level believing, agreeing that Jesus meant it when he said, "You'll do greater things."
Yeah.
And I'm having kind of a progressive epiphany where I'm really starting to believe that in my heart, meaning, wait a minute, if Jesus said it, he meant it, So instead of this dynamic, Mike, instead of, oh, I believe I'm going to do greater things than Jesus, but not really because he's Jesus. I mean, because he's Jesus, and I'm not supposed to outshine Jesus. I think I've been at some level wrestling with that unconsciously, but recently the Lord, I mean, it is an epiphany where it's like, wait a minute, it's His will for us to do greater things. So it's like, I know that's so obvious. Just bear with me.
Mm.
But it's like, wait, it's His will, so it's okay. So it's like, it's not, I mean, that's good. So it's going to happen.
Mm.
It's going to happen. And so I hear, I think what I'm speaking to here is, what matter obeys the voice of God.
Yeah,
So I guess in
voice of
quantum
God carries
physics,
energy.
yeah, in quantum physics, when He speaks, His vibration takes what is unseen and brings it together to now what is seen.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna literally at some point command stone to be gold or whatever,
Yeah.
in the natural, I'm believing for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And is it your mandate right now to focus on the heavenly realms and governing, and this will come later? Is there an order of priority, or do you just feel like that's where God has you personally?
Yeah.
Because to me it seems like it's both and. It's not. To me it seems that way.
Yeah.
At this point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've no problem with we have to do both, and I still do some practical ministry at times, but I'm conscious that I don't want to reestablish something that I'm looking to demolish. So I'm careful that people aren't looking to me to do it for them.
Right.
I always want to be equipping others to do it. And therefore, there are people here who can do those things that I'm wanting to encourage and release to do them. So the focus is not on one person, but on others. And I know there's always the natural inclination to go to the person that they see that they can get most validation from. And I'm sensitive to that. Therefore, at the moment, I don't do some of the things I could do because I don't feel mandated to do them right now. But of course, whenever God says to do something, I do it. So, if God told me to do a miracle, and I would do it, but that's not, I know the reasons for not doing that, and I'm sensitive to those reasons because I know what it's like. The enemy will always try and recreate something of an old covenant system, even in a new wineskin. He will try and bring old wine into it, even if we don't want it. So I'm aware that I know the things that I'm called to do. I know that I know how to do those things. I don't need to do them to actually prove that I know how to do it. And when I need to do them, then I will be able to. So yes, I know I can walk through a wall, or I can put my hand through something, because I know that I can control the frequency of my hand because it's vibrating, and I can match that with the frequency of something that actually appears solid that isn't, and therefore, just like I could put my hand into water, I can put my hand through something solid. But I don't need to do it because God hasn't told me to do it. I know I could levitate in the air, but if I did that in a meeting, would I be pandering to people's it would probably freak people out, but in a sense, I don't want the focus to be on, I know it's not about me. I'm not afraid to do whatever God asked me to do, but I'm not going to do it as a party trick or to show how much I know, because I don't need to. I don't need to do that. So, and I would rather encourage other people to do that, because it's great. Because I don't need it in terms of validation of anything. So I don't do those things. Like, when I would go to places, I'm not going to just do some of the things that other people would do because that's the normal thing to do. I'm not going to just, we'll have a line of people and pray for them all. Yes, I sometimes do prophesy over people when the Spirit just comes on me and I can't help it. But I don't seek to do it because I know then people will be coming to me, and what I'm trying to do is get them to hear God for themselves. And because that's what it's about. All of us being able to do these things, not specialists. And I think all of us will be able to do them if we learn how to hear the voice of God, get a flow of the life of God from the inside, understand the nature that God is in all things, therefore he's in me as well as in everything else, and I can make that connection between him and me, and therefore that gives me the ability to change and transform something.
Understood. Okay, so Jesus, here's what I'm thinking. Assume a right heart. Assume it's not, I'm not wanting to go out and do those for party tricks.
Yeah.
Or to validate myself or whatever, but to demonstrate the superiority of the kingdom over the inferiority of the natural.
Mm.
And Jesus did those things to model, I believe, to the disciples.
He's disappeared right in the middle of what he was saying. Yeah, okay.
Oh,
Never mind.
It seemed like he was having a bad connection. He kept dropping out.
I think he might be somewhere else, but yeah, he's back. Hey.
so, and you know this, y'all both know this. Bear with me. Jesus, I believe, did the miracles to demonstrate the power of the kingdom over the natural, and he was expecting the disciples to get it. Like, hey, I'm showing you what to do and what I want you to do. And they said, like the loaves and the fishes. They said they need to eat. Send them away to eat. He goes, you feed them. And they're like, whatever. And he goes, okay, give me the loaves and the fish. And he showed them how. And then they're in the boat. They're like, Calmus, what are you going to do? Didn't you get it?
You can do it.
I want you to speak to it. Don't you get it yet? So eventually, he goes, look, in so many words, he goes, okay, I'm going to leave now. And now you guys do it. I'll send you the helper and y'all do it. So I don't mean for party tricks.
Yeah.
But greater things, I'm thinking it's either more of what Jesus did or something totally different than what Jesus did in the natural, and maybe something totally different like the court systems in the heavenly realms. And I'm with you that it really shouldn't be a one-person show, but we're all little Christ.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like I should be doing those things, and if there are followers in my sphere of influence, it's like, okay, I'm showing you how to do it. But at some point, it's like, don't come to me. You go do it. But
yeah, I think my perspective on that is that the Holy Spirit gifts us to do certain things. Gifts of healings, gifts of miracles, gifts of prophecy, words of wisdom, words of knowledge. That is the Holy Spirit who gives them as He wills. We can't demand them because it's as He wills. And so He sees the situations that we're in, and He does things when we're available to do them. We make ourselves available. He does things. Now, I believe that is what's probably gone on for most of history, because what has now opened up is another dimension in terms of sonship. Because that's all about the Holy Spirit. We can say He equips us, but actually He does it.
Right.
It says He gives those gifts as He wills. It isn't up to us, it's up to Him. But I believe that we're coming to a position of maturity as sons where it will be up to us. And therefore they won't operate as gifts of the Spirit. They will be things that who we are. And I believe that's what Jesus did. I don't believe Jesus did any of His miracles, healings as gifts of the Spirit. I believe the Holy Spirit was upon Him and the Father was in Him, but it wasn't a gift that He had to wait for the Holy Spirit to do it when the Holy Spirit fancied doing it. What He said was, I do what I see the Father doing. I say what I hear the Father saying. And what He said was, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And He had already was living in dual realms. And that's what he wants to teach us to do in the maturity of the fact that now those dual realms are open to us, and the books about those dual realms are now open to us. So we're in a season where we've had let's say we've had the early rain, and we've had the early glory, and now we're going to get the latter glory, which is going to be much greater, because it's going to be a radiation of what's in us, not just the things that we're gifted to do sometimes. And I believe that's because we will be able to operate living in dual realms and manifesting heaven on earth through our lives as a gateway to do those things. And I don't believe that the greater works are just there's more of them, because I think that's just, he would have said, you will do these many more times than I've done them. It doesn't actually indicate that this was a multiplication in just doing the same things but more. Yes, of course there is more, because there's more of us. But I do believe it's to do with works that he did not demonstrate while he was here, but he had done and had been doing in heaven. Mm-hmm. So the court system, he obviously was in the court when he saw Satan accuse Peter and demand to sift Peter.
Right.
And he didn't say, no, you can't. But what he said is, I'm interceding for you. I'm praying that your faith won't fail. So I'm standing in that intercessory role on behalf of you, because you're not there yet.
Right.
So if Peter was there, he could have faced the accusation, come under the judgment of God, then Satan would have no legal right. But Peter didn't have the actual knowledge to do it because that book wasn't opened. And I think this is where people say, well, I don't see the disciples doing any of this stuff. No, they didn't, because they weren't doing the greater works. You know, because it wasn't their time to do the greater works. They've done the works, and their works of Jesus has been done all the way through. And there have been some people who have gone deeper and deeper with God, who have done some, we call them mystics, and people who have pursued things, who have learned how to do some of those other things. And, you know, you don't actually see anyone radiating, being transfigured. You know, there are indications that Peter's shadow, or maybe what was coming from him, the power, was able to heal people. We know that Paul laid hands on things and transferred something, which, well, we understand how that can happen now in terms of, you know, how quantum entanglement works and how you can, you know, impart something to something else. But I do believe we're in a time where we're being taught how Jesus did what he did, rather than the age of the Holy Spirit doing it. And in a sense, the fivefold ministry equipped people to connect with the Holy Spirit, or should have done. I believe they took their place and did it on behalf of, rather than equipping most of the time, and therefore that's why that's not going to operate anymore, because we're now moving into the order of Melchizedek, which actually is a royal priesthood who are after that order in heaven, but as a gateway can manifest heaven here. Now we will have some of the greater works will be discipling the nations, because Jesus didn't disciple the nations.
Good word.
He made disciples, and he told his disciples to go and disciple the nations. And to a degree, they made disciples in nations, but they never actually discipled a nation. Or there were some nations that became what we would say very Christian orientated, and there's certain still are some. But in general, that didn't take place. But I believe it will, as we learn then to establish government, heavenly government, that actually brings these places of heavenly government, so that we will start to see that dominion mandate fully function. But we will do it from understanding how to live in dual realms and bring the kingdom as it is in heaven on earth, you know, because that's what was missing, the as it is in heaven. Because, okay, the prayer is, yeah, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth, but that's very much like, okay, that's all about you doing it. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. But now we can go and do what Jesus did. I see what your will is, and now as a co-heir with you, I can actually do those things. that changes the perspective of it and increases our sonship and the level of what sonship really is, and legislative ability. You know,
So,
we get to legislate and change things, and those are some of the greater works, because that's what sons do. They are, I mean, literally, Jesus said to the disciples, or to those who were criticizing, when he said he was a son of God, you know, well, don't you realize that in Psalm, I think it was 86 or somewhere around there, that I call you gods, all gods? And that was God saying, because you're sons of the Most High, I call you gods. Well, that I know offends a whole load of people, but he wasn't saying that we are God, but he was saying, as you said, we're little Christ, we are actually sons of God as he's a son of God. I think that's the dimension that's going to increase, understanding sonship and what it really means to be a son of God, and actually what it means to be God with a little g. Because actually, if I'm ruling my sphere, and that's my circle of influence on my mountain, I am literally a little God on my mountain. Not wanting to be offensive, but literally, I'm a lord. I'm a little God ruling on my mountain under his kingship, sonship, fatherhood. But I want to just be like him. I want to be like my dad. You know, and my dad does all this stuff like creating the universe and holding it all together and legislating it and signing angels. I want to be like him. So I have angels that are assigned to me for my mountain that I can do like they were assigned to Jesus for his mountain. And so I think there's a major shift coming in understanding what sonship really is, which is why the greater works will begin to manifest, which is why I think the focus on those earthly works won't be released so much until we understand how to do them from a heavenly perspective, rather than just doing the gifts. You know, it's like, because I think that's generally what people are generally still operating under. You know, and some may be very gifted. In other words, they've practiced those gifts and they become a ministry, if you like, because you know you have the 1 Corinthians 12 gifts of the Spirit are somewhat different from 1 Corinthians 14, where they're talking about I've assigned first apostles, second prophets. You know, they were ministries of people who operated in those gifts. But I do still believe that their real purpose was to equip everybody to operate in those gifts, not to be the people on the pedestals that everyone looked up to and got them to do it all for them. You know, because that's just spiritual laziness, which is what the church suffers from. You know, the malaise of spiritual laziness. Hey, we pay a pastor to do all that for us. You know, which is not the reason that you should be supporting somebody. It's to release their ministry, you know, not to pay them to do it for you. You're actually wanting to support them so they can equip you to do it for yourself. You know, which is you know, a different mindset, and I do believe we're going to see that shift. But we have to learn how Jesus did it in intimacy, in relationship with the Father in him, everything flowing through him. That's what we're learning, and that's why I think if you focus on the end result rather than the process to get the end result, you won't know how to do it. But if you focus on, you know,
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, no, carry on. That's it. Yeah.
No, I said I'm totally there. Yeah. So in so many words, what I think I hear you saying is, it's your belief, certainly your conviction, that learning to operate in the heavenly realms and understanding that unseen world, that realm, and how it works is the undergraduate program before we get to graduate school of releasing that in the natural.
Yeah.
In so many words. But at some point, it is being manifested on the earth for unbelievers and believers alike to see. You know, there's a little Christ in Ukraine sometime in the future, as an example, when there's a famine that says, like Jesus, let there be food to eat, and everybody eats.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, definitely coming. In fact, there's a girl in China who's a teenager who is being translocated all over villages in China and is radiating as light when she goes into a village, and the whole village just turned to God, and she starts manifesting light. So I'm not saying it's not happening, and because there are always going to be forerunners of those things who God starts to, hey, that's possible, and then it becomes, is that possible for me? Actually, not as only is it possible, it's actually supposed to be me doing those things. But it's always somebody who does it first to then, it's like, now what we're wanting to make sure is that those people who do it first are taking on the capacities of Joshua's and Caleb's, who lead the others to then do that as well, not set up, I'm the wonderful light ministry and I radiate light and everyone must come to see my light radiate.
Totally.
That's I think what the change will be, because God is bringing his judgment on those things and actually saying, I'm not going to give you what you've had up till now, because you've been doing it in the wrong thing, and I'm not going to do it anymore. So I think there is going to come where there's going to be a lessening of those who are operating in the wrong dimension and an increase of those who are operating in the right. But we're in a transition where, you know, in one sense, the fullness of how to do it has not yet come, and the fullness of how it has been done is going to start to diminish. And that will be, so, okay, no, I'm no longer going to be dependent on how I used to do this. I have to learn how to do it a different way.
Okay.
And that comes out of relationship, and that's the key.
I'm thinking, I'm totally with you there. Just assume, although, you know, that at some point, like we're practicing in the pathways.
Yeah.
We're practicing going to heaven. We're practicing ruling the government, and we learn by practice. We're creating pathways. And it seems like at some point, do I begin to practice some of those things in the natural, you know, and and you know, at some point I envision going out to the swimming pool and speaking to the water to become solid under my feet and giving it a go. Yeah. And I may get wet a few times.
No, I think this is where I think the mandate comes in. It's like, do I only do what I see the Father doing, or do I try and do this?
I understand.
So am I mandated to do that, therefore I will go and do it? If God tells you to go and practice, then you have a mandate to go and practice, rather than, I think I need to practice this, because that's sort of putting the cart before the horse, you know, in a sense. And it's like, if we're in relationship, when our spirit and the Spirit of God in unison will direct us what to do, you know, and we will know and we'll do it. And I think what we're practicing is training our senses to be able to hear and see and engage in God in such a way that we can see what he's doing and know what he's doing. Amen. That's what we're training to do, is to actually get rid of all the junk of our way of seeing things and perceiving that realm, to learn how to engage God in such a way that we would be confident to actually go and say, what do you want me to do? And know that we then have the authority as a son to do it, without thinking, well, how am I going to do it? Oh no, how do I do it? How do I do it? Well, he said do it, I do it. I don't even have to think about how to do it. I just let my spirit, and I do it. Whether it's, you know, a miracle or producing a whole field of food or whatever it might be, I think, I'm not sure we're going to get that much practice. We may do, you know, we may start, okay, hey, we've run out of food today, let's multiply some. We've done that here. You know, we feed 70, 80, 100 people a day sometimes, and sometimes we've actually had a pot that should have fed less than it actually fed, because it just kept going, and we kept dishing it up and kept dishing it up, because Alice in the kitchen, she actually speaks this stuff, and she started, okay, we're running short, I'm going to just speak to that pot. Now we've got some biblical precedents with the oil that kept pouring and into every vessel until all the vessels ran out. Sure. We've actually seen that. So we've seen some outworkings of that actually take place. I think, you know, we're talking about administering that on the basis of a city of refuge that actually functions under that. So, yeah, I mean, God may well authorize you. If your desires of your heart are beginning to be drawn towards it, then it's an indication that God is stirring you to pursue it. You know, but I would say, you know, pursue the relationship that leads you to know what the Father's doing. Then you're not sort of, oh, should I do this? Shouldn't I do this? Is this something? No, I need to do this right now. You know, I have no doubt if a whole load of people came to throw me off a cliff, that I would be able to walk right through them. I don't have any doubts about that. Do I need to do that right now? No, because no one's come to throw me off a cliff, and we haven't got too many cliffs around here anyway. So, but you know what I mean? It's like, so there's no need, but I know that I know how to do that.
Yeah. So you don't need to go down to Dover and pick a fight to practice, right?
It'll be a long way. No, because I just don't need to do it. But I know when I will need to do it. You know, and I've seen myself doing it, and I've seen the future in doing some of those things. But it's always in the context of not being the center of it.
Yeah, I get it.
That's always the context. This is just something I'll do in my life as God shows me. I won't be doing it standing up in front of a group of people saying, here, this is how you do this. It won't. That's not how I believe God is going to train people to do this. It will be individually hearing his voice, individually having the confidence in knowing God and knowing him and knowing nothing's impossible for him, to be able to then be obedient just like Jesus did.
Yeah.
Because Jesus was able to walk into the equivalent of the hospital and only heal one person. No, I don't know whether he struggled with that. If he was only doing what the Father doing, and the Father showed him go into where the pool, you know, the pool of Siloam, and they're all waiting there for the angel, so they're all sick, and they're all showing a measure of faith because they want to come and get in that water and get healed, and yet he only walked in there, and it's only recorded that he healed the one person.
Right.
And it's like, because he only did what he saw the Father doing. Now I wonder whether everyone pressed him, and it's like whether people criticized him. You know, Jesus, he did, because I went there and I didn't get healed. I don't know exactly what happened, but the way it's recorded, that's what it was, because Jesus went to do something God told him to do. When other people came to him, it says he healed all of them, because obviously that's what he saw the Father doing. Right. Healing everyone, and he had the mandate to heal everyone who came to him. Whereas sometimes he went to do things that he was directed to do, and that's different. So if anyone comes up to me and says, will you pray for me for healing, I will always say yes, because I have a mandate to lay hands on the sick and see them recover, and if they have the faith to ask, then I will always pray for them. You know, but I won't always go and say I will offer to pray for you, because unless God tells me to do that. So I don't respond to need, I respond to what I'm authorized to do and told to do, rather than just need. And I feel comfortable with that. Years ago, I wouldn't have felt comfortable with that. I would have felt, you know, well, I need to do that, or what will people think if I don't do that, or whatever. Now I don't really care what anyone else thinks. I'm just interested in what God thinks. Right. You know, and that's what matters to me. You know, if anyone else criticized me for doing this or not doing that, good luck to them. It's water off a duck's back. I'm not really interested. But when God says, well done, good and faithful servant, I'm really interested in hearing that one. You know, and I really want to know, actually, God, what do you want me to do? You know, and right now it's connecting with people all over the world to help and equip them, for them to be able to do these things themselves, not for me to be the sort of the miracle guru who goes around and does it for them, and you know, because I just don't feel that's my role. There may be others who it may well be that God inspires others through that, and you get some of that stuff now. You know, the gemstones that are coming out of people's mouths and all that stuff, and people ask, well, why aren't we seeing some of those things? I said, because we don't need to see them. Why do we need to see those things when we've got God here and we've got the kingdom here and we've got angels here all the time? Do we need a gem coming out of someone's mouth to indicate that God's presence is here, or do you know it's here? Because you're actually experiencing it, and you're bringing it because you're releasing it from what's flowing from the inside of you. Oh, right. Because we don't see any of those things. We have seen them in the past. I've had gold dust and gold stuff and all those things in the past, but I think we've matured out of needing that now. We don't need that as a sign of validation because we can actually see what's going on in the realm of the spirit. So we don't need something coming out of the spiritual realm and manifesting just as a sign to show this was God, because we're already seeing this was God because we're going in and engaging with God. So some of that is we don't see it. We do have lots of miracles that take place. We have lots of angels bringing things to people, things that have been lost and they get restored and returned, because that's the stuff we're teaching people to do. We have lots of miracles with God providing supernaturally and doing things in amazing ways, and some of that is because we're calling it into being, we're sending angels out, and so we're seeing some of the actual physical reactions to things that are going on in the natural realm. I mean, some of the people that I'm connecting with right now that I don't know, I have no idea who they are, but I know that I've sent out a sound, and I know I've sent out a light, and I've sent out angels with a blue scroll to go and stick into people so that they will start to respond to what they're called to do, So in that thing of, I find it really ironic actually, this blue light, because this Heaven's Call creative blue light beings thing. I used to think that's a really weird name. Isn't that weird? But actually, I've been releasing a blue light, and actually people have been engaged with that blue light and have contacted me as a result of that. So it's like, okay, great, awesome. I'm happy to do that because that's what God has told me to do. Because that at the moment is what my main focus is. I'm not focused on what's going here on the ground. I've got 7 other people to do that.
I get that, yeah.
Plus another 7 mountains. So that frees me to actually think about, okay, how do we take this out and how do we fulfill our mandate to bless people and to equip people and to help people around the world, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing now.
Right.
So that's just, but then if you are called to do something on the ground, you may well be more focused on, we want to actually see this and that and the other, whereas I've got other people who can focus on that because I don't need to think about that so much. I just equip them and bless them and release them and pray blessing on them and call them into their government and release them to it.
Well, I can't say that I've been called to that yet because I don't know. I definitely am being stirred and encouraged and believing.
Yeah.
I definitely have a get the cart before the horse gifting.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I taught John 14:12 for 2 years in 2008 to 2010, and then we had 80 days of revival meetings where we saw manifestations of the Spirit and healing and deliverance and people getting saved and changed and transformed for 87 days in a row. And I taught on that for 2 years, not seeing an awful lot, just the general usual bits and pieces. And then all of a sudden it's like God says, wow, bang, this is what I can do in an instant.
Right.
But I'm not going to do this in an instant all the time until you're ready. Now I'm going to teach you how to go to heaven and how to administrate all these things so that you're ready for what this will actually be meaning, not just calling people to come to a meeting, but actually equipping them to have this lifestyle for themselves. So I can see, we've had many actually times of what we would call outpourings of the Spirit, where we see manifestations and power and amazing things. And those have all been forerunners of saying, God saying, yeah, I can do this, I will do it, but I want to equip you some more.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes back to being birthed in that in 1993, to having several moves of that over the years where they've been intense times of the presence and power and what we call outpourings of the Spirit, or revival type things. But I know that that is to become the norm of how we live, not will we go to meetings for it, you know. But
Right.
God inspired it in meetings to say, hey, there's more, and I can do more, and I will do more, but actually you need to be ready. So being prepared for more. So, yeah. Okay. Okay. Have you got anything, Peter? You've been quiet today.
Oh, well, no, it was good. I enjoyed that. That was good. That was very helpful. Well, I just had one question I'm just curious about. I know there's a lot of talk about the Galactic Council and all of that, and I know you've shared a little bit, but the thing I wanted to know is why is it the 28th of February that it starts? Is there some calendar or something that there's a significance to that, or is that just an arbitrary thing that Ian got or somebody got, or what do you know about that?
Nothing at all, to be honest. God has spoken to me about it, but I don't know what the significance of it or why there's a significance of it. I can hazard some sort of insight into it from what the Circle of the Deep are doing and how the different houses align and where seasons come. I certainly understand the 4 seasons, you know, of judgment, justice, mercy, and grace, or grace and mercy. I mean, I understand the nature of that and what that's about. In terms of 70 days and 70 days and 70 days, you know, well, that's okay. That's 10 times 7. So maybe there's a multiplication of government that it's talking about there. You know, there are biblical symbols of different things. You know, you obviously have the 70, which were the Sanhedrin, the court of 70. You have the Galactic Council that's 70, and it's basically saying that there are 70 days where they sit. So, okay, 70, 70, 70, 70, yeah, there's I don't really bother too much about that sort of stuff. It's almost like what I need to do is focus on what do I do when I need to go there, if I need to go there, and you know, and I'm working on that. You know, I'm working on a court case, which I'm going to present for judgment. I'm going to present for justice and for mercy, grace and mercy, for the next, you know, 3-4 sets of, and I know when I need to do that in each of those 70-day periods. I need to do it on day 35 because God told me to do it on day 35. So I don't know. I've got to now put on my calendar when all the day 35s are in the next 280 days. Because I got to prepare the case. Now I'm preparing, and I'm sort of getting ready to prepare that case because God told me to do it. The previous 6 months of my encounters in heaven gave me some insight into how to do that. And I'm not saying that the way I do it is the way everyone else has got to do it. I'm just saying that's what God has shown me, so I'm going to do it the way He's shown me. But I'm working on that, and I'm going to release that and do whatever it is. You know, I don't know what's going to happen when I get there or whatever. I mean, I've been there before, so I'm aware of the place. But I know that I have a court case based on what was, what is, and what will be, and aligning those 3 things, which is, you know, the pathway that we can engage in, and I know that's based in the precepts of God, His statutes and His laws, and I know that will release His ordinances, and I know that then will bring a release of other things. So I have some insight into it, and I'm personally working on it. You know, but I don't think anyone can just, hey, great, let's go out to the Galactic Council. I think, you know, if you've not been in the mobile court and you've not been on your own mountain, I don't think God is going to say, hey, I'm going to trust you with changing the affairs of the nations and the culture of the nations as a result of this. You know, he needs to know that someone's going to present a case for judgment that is not going to be about punishment. Number 1, because judgment is looking for a verdict, and I'm going to present a case that's looking for a favorable verdict. That's my mission. It's going to be a favorable verdict that then allows justice. Then we're going to see justice administered, and then we're going to see grace released and mercy. And at the moment I'm working on the whole judgment and justice area, but I will, and then I'll have 35 days in each of the other sessions to prepare the rest of it. So, but I don't know why the 28th God hasn't told me, but He did tell me about the 28th 2 years ago, and that was before I'd ever heard anyone else talk about it. I was invited to go, and I turned down the invitation. I just wasn't ready. I was like, I don't think I'm going to go, thank you. But God gave me another invitation, so I took it. So that was just what it was. I think there are some Hebrew mystical things that point to some of this stuff that were in some of the oral traditions and some of the things that operated. I mean, you had Old Testament mystics as well as you have New Testament ones. They operated in a different realm of engagement, of just what we see in the Word of God. And some of those insights are good. I'm not saying all the conclusions that people draw from them, particularly when it comes to the Kabbalah and other things like that. I'm not saying that the modern religious system that's developed is what was going on in the revelation that was contained within some of those old covenant writings and things is right. I mean, I'm not saying that at all, but I do believe there's truth. And some of that truth is being unveiled as the books get opened. And for those who are mature, you can draw truth from whether you're reading a quantum physics book or anything else. You can see the truth, because the truth comes from God, but not follow the pattern necessarily that people have adopted by perverting that truth and bringing another conclusion to that which is actually the truth. So I'm pretty eclectic in my openness to receive truth, but I'm very selective on what conclusions I will draw. They have to be very, very, very in line with the plumb line of biblical understanding of God and His purposes, for me to be operating in it. But I can see truth in many of the religions that are out there. They have elements of truth. They just don't come back with the personal God and Jesus from it. It doesn't mean that there isn't some element of truth in it. But I wouldn't go advising sort of a new believer to go and read the Kabbalah or something. I mean, and I personally have not read it, and I don't intend reading it unless God told me to. It's like, because I don't need to. I get my stuff from talking to God. So, I don't actually need at this point unless there's a. I mean, I have read the Book of Enoch, and because Enoch told me to go and read it, and I thought it'd be really rude if I didn't actually, read his book when he met me and told me to read his book. So I thought, okay, I don't want to meet him sometime in the future, and he asked me, "Have you read my book?" Well, no, sorry, I've been a bit busy. I haven't got around to it yet. And when Jacob told me to go and read a portion of his life, I did. But my real desire is to engage in a living relationship with the living Word of God, where He can give me His Word and reveal His truth to me, which is what He says He'll do. He will disclose, and the Holy Spirit will disclose, and as the Spirit of truth, and Jesus being the way, the truth, and the life. I want a relationship with the way, the truth, and the life. I don't want to follow some religious system that someone else has developed. And I'm definitely not into developing my own religious system, so because it's about relationship. So, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't know how much more time you have. Do you have a little more time?
I got a few more minutes, 5 minutes or so.
Okay. Well, real quick, somebody had asked me recently, we're learning all this new stuff and how to operate in the kingdom, the courts, going to heaven, all of that kind of stuff. It can cause one to get a little bit spiritually proud, that God's revealing this and I know this, I'm on the cutting edge, all of that kind of stuff. How do you recommend that people would, keep themselves from moving in spiritual pride, or know when you are moving it, or like, guard against it, so that you don't give that, so that doesn't come out?
Okay. Well, in a sense, some people will accuse you of spiritual pride if you know anything that they don't know, and they'll accuse you of being arrogant. Just because someone accuses you of it doesn't mean that you actually are operating in it. But we do need to understand the whole trading floors. So I would suggest the living sacrifice process of the thoughts and intentions of the heart, making sure that we ask God to search our heart, know our heart, reveal if there are anything in our heart that is going to be a problem. If we're ongoingly presenting ourselves as a living sacrifice, then we can be assured that God is ongoingly going to purify us, whether dividing soul and spirit. So what are my behaviors? Where are they motivated? What is the source of motivation? Am I using these things to meet a material or emotional need through spiritual things, which is just as materialism as using chocolate or shoes or boys' toys to make yourself feel better? We can do spiritual things to make ourselves feel better or to validate ourselves. We have to be willing to be ruthlessly honest, to present ourselves to death, because literally that's what a living sacrifice is: dead to self, to the old nature, on embracing the cross, exchanging the old from the new consciously every day, so that I'm crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who lives. It's now Christ who lives in me. But now I live by faith of the Son of God. So I'm now living with Christ in union, not out of the flesh. But there's a process of transformation to ensure that we're open and honest, knowing the love of God and willing for him to reveal, hey, that motivation wasn't good, repent, renounce, let me cleanse it. Let me take you to the fire of the altar and let me put the coal to you, this area of your life, so that that can be purged. Now, as a result of that, Isaiah, when he went before the altar and the coal was put on his lips, he didn't turn around and say, oh, woe is me, I'm nobody and nothing. He turned around and said, here am I, send me. So true humility is actually knowing who you are and what God has called you to do and doing it. Because literally you're humbling yourself under God's mighty hand and accepting who he has called you to be and being totally comfortable with that. Not, well, I'm nobody, I'm a worm. If I can't be confident in who I am and therefore confident to do what I'm called to do, then I don't know that. Is that arrogance? No, because my motive is not to show that I'm better than anybody else, because I'm not looking at anybody else. I'm not comparing myself to what anyone else does, to what Ian or anybody else. I'm just wanting to be me. Therefore, I'm not looking at, well, what about other people and what about other people think, or bothering about what they think. I'm just interested in pleasing God and serving him and becoming like him. So if that comes over as, if confidence comes over as arrogance, then that's people's problems, not mine. Because I'm going to be operating gentle and humble heart, because that's what Jesus said. If I'm yoked to him, I learn from him because he was gentle and humble in heart. Now that didn't mean that he was a weak, meek person who did not stand up for himself and stand on the truth or challenge those that didn't. Look at his life. Look at the red letters that he wrote, that he said, pretty challenging stuff, but he was describing that he was operating in gentleness and humble of heart, because he knew who he was and he was confident to say, I am the Son of God. He didn't bother whether people accepted that or not, but he was confident to say it because was he arrogant? He was accused of being rather arrogant or mad or deceived or whatever, or a devil, you know, but actually he knew who he was and he was confident. He didn't have to prove it. The miracles wasn't to prove who he was. God did that before he ever did a miracle. When he opened heaven and said, "This is my beloved son, I'm really pleased." And later on, "This is my beloved son, listen to him." God affirmed him, not what he did, because he was coming from a place of rest, because he was yoked to the Father. You know, how did he know what a yoke was and how to be gentle and humble? Because he was yoked to the Father, and the Father was in him. And so he learned how in his life. And then he said, "Look, this is the way to do it, boys and girls. You just need to be in a place of rest. If you're weary and heavy laden, it's an indication that you're carrying loads that don't belong to you, and you're taking on responsibilities that aren't yours, and you're doing things in your own strength rather than mine. So come to me, and you will find rest for your souls." So your spirits can be therefore doing its stuff without your soul getting in the way. That will come to a place of rest and agreement with your spirit, so you can flow. And I think that's really what we're looking for here. You know, and people are different. I'm not a very demonstrative, sort of loud, outward going sort of person. That's just not who I am. So when I go to a place, I'm not going to probably be the center of attention, and because that's just not who I am. I'd rather just sit and chat with people. You know, I don't want a platform, or I don't want to go and sit on a podium with people. You know, I'm happy to sit and talk and engage. Well, I mean, you've seen me when I'm around. I mean, I'm just available for people because I want to relate to them. You know, I don't want it to be because that's any way promoting myself. I just want to help people. You know, but there are other people who are more gregarious, and that's great. And that doesn't mean that they're any more arrogant or anything else. It just means that's who their personality is, and they can be them. And God can use them. We just have to make sure that we are coming from a place of peace and rest of who we actually are, what our redemptive gift is, how we've been created by God, and just be content to be that. Because being gentle actually means that our strength and who we are is actually completely surrendered to the control of the King. And even in Greek thinking, you know, gentleness was the word for a wild stallion that has a bit in its mouth and it's being directed by the rider. I just want the bit in my mouth being God saying, do this and do that. You know, let's go here, let's go that. And actually, you get the whole picture of being yoked to Jesus coming from that thing of don't kick against the pricks or the goads, which was what they had for helping an oxen keep on the right path, a pointed stick. And if they didn't go the right path, they would get the point of a stick. You know, and Paul, when he came to his conversion, Jesus said, you know, why are you persecuting me? You know, why is you find it so hard? Because you're kicking against the, because I've been calling you for a long time and you've not been responding. So it's getting pretty awkward for you, you know, and I think that's just the sign that when we're yoked, we do get some prods now and again. And ultimately being yoked to Jesus as being the lead oxen, he sets the place where we're going to plow today from a bit farming perspective. He sets the field, he sets the furrow and the direction, and I just follow him because I'm learning from him because he is good at it, and I'm just learning what it is to be following this yoke. But the yoke is easy and the burden's light because I do have a responsibility, but it's me. It's who I really am. So it's not a heavy responsibility. It's just, hey, I was always born and created for this. Now I feel just in the place where I should be. You know, it's not a, you know, some people say to me, well, how do you manage to do all the stuff you're doing? Because I'm called to do it. And I have all the resources to do it. So it's not a burden. It's a delight. If I was asked to do something I wasn't called to do, I would probably find it a real burden. But I don't, because I know this is who I am. So I'm free to be me. And I think that's really the key. Living sacrifice every day and being open for God to reveal those things and then not getting upset about it. Just saying, okay, if that's the motivation, I know you love me, therefore I'm willing for you to correct me and discipline me in this so that I will follow a better path. So purify this area of my heart. Put the fire from the altar on it. In fact, here's my heart. Stick it on the altar. Heat it up, because I don't want anything that's going to bring dishonor to God or bring honor to me rather than glory to him, because I'm here to bring him glory, not me. But I've had to go through all that. I've had to go through all the trading floors, question the motives of my heart. Even before I went into all this stuff, I was like, I don't want to do this from the wrong motive. And you always have to be open for that. But you become more sensitive to it because your conscience can be activated by reverence to actually show you, hey, don't think that, or don't go down that route, because actually that's not the right motivation. Your conscience can bring you to a place of peace or a place of turmoil, which indicates something isn't right, and then you respond. Okay, why am I not at peace? Oh, because that reason that you decided to do that didn't come from the right place. Oh, right, okay. Why was that there? Show me the root of that. Yeah, remove that iniquitous pattern in my life. Put me on the altar. I want to die to that. I want to live for you. So yeah, that's it. And I think those that aren't willing to daily present themselves as a living sacrifice are probably not going to be operating in much of a level of authority. Real authority. They may think they are, but actually in reality God is not going to release that authority to people who are not humble. But as I said, humility is not what people think it is. Because if I'm arrogant enough to think that I know better than God, and God says I'm this, well, actually I don't want to. I'm not accepting that. And I've struggled with some of it. Because it's like, I never wanted a title or a name. It's like I just, people always wanted to give me a title. I'd never take one. Now, some of that was because I know the issue of titles, and some of it was because I felt uncomfortable, and actually I had to deal with why I felt uncomfortable. And so when I dealt with that freed me to, okay, whatever you want to call me, God, or whatever you want me to do, and if I felt, led to say, like Ian goes around, he said, well, I'm a chancellor of this, that, and the other. If I felt that I needed to say that for any reason, I would, but I don't. I accept the call in heaven because sometimes I get called that, and I respond. But I'm not looking for that title. But if God said, look, act as a chancellor and use that chancellor's decree to authorize this bench or do that, then I would. But it would only be because that was what I was called to do in that situation, really. But we have growth and stuff that we go through to get us into the right place. So long as we're willing to pursue it and not hide it, not bury it, let it come to the surface, then I don't feel any guilt, shame, and condemnation because I'm loved and clothed in the righteousness of God. So there's no big deal to say, hey, I'm guilty of that. Oh, yeah. That mindset is totally wrong, isn't it? Yeah. Well, last week it might not have been, I wasn't aware of it. But when I'm open for God to show me, then I can embrace it. I don't run in the bushes and say, oh, woe is me, I need to cover this up and hide it. I run to the altar and say, hey, let's get this on the altar and let's get this purified and refined. So I think that's probably where it is on that. Okay. 12, right. Okay, we better leave it there.
Yeah.